Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Jennifer Moore of CENIT North America. With me, I have David Solomonek from SEAL Systems and Sasha Schwenker, also of CENIT. We're here to discuss how to empower downstream operations with live engineering data, part 2 of the two-part series. If you missed part 1, it is now live on YouTube. Quick agenda, we're going to kick things off with a recap of what we showed in part 1 for continuity, followed by an overview scenario and architecture components for this week's focus on the output portion of our global change scenario. We'll jump quickly into the demo where we use ever-changing data downstream with production, customers, and suppliers, then on to Q&A and wrap up. Should you have questions throughout the webinar, please type them into the chat feature and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. As a reminder, the question we've aimed to answer over this two-part series is, of course, how do you capture ever-changing engineering data in real time and then share that data across the enterprise from sales to quality to procurement, manufacturing, and so on? In our day-to-day roles, we often don't think about all of the areas this data touches outside of our own and the opportunities that that data has to change. Is the data reliable and secure as it moves internally, and as well as to customers and partners? What we're really talking about here is enabling digital continuity. In part 1 of our demo scenario, we used a globally distributed change process, working up just to the point of watermarking and stamping. In today's session, we'll utilize that same globally distributed change process and show how our customers are implementing additional automation to streamline downstream use of engineering data through purchase and production order examples, though it can apply across nearly any business process where engineering data is used, as it's all integrated into the workflow change package. The scenario, as before, leverages your enterprise backbone, SAP, no matter if it's on ECC, S/4HANA, or leveraging the cloud. This builds on the previous scenario, focusing in on cenitCONNECT and the SEAL conversion engine and output management. And with that, I'll pass it over to David so we can get right into the demo. David?
Thanks, Jennifer. I'd like to start with a brief overview of the conversion and output workflow. So we'll take a look at conversions generally handled by an application server, which receives information from a system of records such as SAP, another ERP or PLM system or host platform. This information comes along as a package, usually in the form of files, properties, metadata, other relevant data that would be important to converting these files, so telling it what to convert, what information belongs with that converted file, and where to put it when it's finished converting it. On the application platform, so the SEAL conversion engine, we would convert these files from 2D to 3D formats. You might have anything from an Office file, you could have CAD files. We could also mix and match some of this and embed 3D files into 2D formats, such as a 3D PDF. Once these files are converted, essentially you have some additional metadata from the ERP system, which could come in the form of stamps or digital signatures or things that need to be added to the files for markup. Could be for security, could be for additional notices, property information, etc. Once that's all collected and put together, we would then take that PDF or other relevant format and put it back into SAP. So this could go into a document record, could be added to a material structure, could be put into a production order or purchase order. But this information is essentially round trip. So it goes out of SAP, gets processed in some way, and then gets put back into the SAP system for further use in other modules or for long-term storage and archiving. It's really good for regulatory needs or compliance and so on. Next, I'd like to take a look at the output engine. So on the other hand, it works similarly but different. So we, in this case, have a one-way out. So we're collecting information in SAP or another ERP system. We're pulling that information with the metadata, the properties, the files, resolving a complete document structure like we're going to show today in this example. And we collect that information, convert it as we would normally into something like a PDF. We could also send native files, so you have CAD files that you can share with customers and suppliers. This information is then packaged together into either a digital or print format. These formats are independent of each other, so you can create print, you can do digital, send these files out to customers and suppliers based on their needs. Whether you're transferring through EDI or you're just transferring out as notice through your own portals, the file formats can be interchangeable in this in terms of the destination. Once these are sent out, essentially you have some notification that can be put back into SAP. So there is some form of notice to the sender that the recipient has received it in some way. And in some cases with web portal output and some other types of digital distribution, you even get notices that somebody accessed this information. So that's how it works. Right now I'll get into a real world demo. We're going to show purchase orders, and then we'll get into production orders as well and use our examples here.
At this point, we'll take a look at a live SAP system where we have some of these engineering parts released in the system already. For a first step, we'll show generation of a purchase order when we need to go out and get some of these parts to complete our production request. So in this example, we'll head into transaction ME22N. Here we have a purchase order available to us. There's a standard purchase order that we've established. Here we have a line item that contains a material. This material we can go into. We can have a look at the additional data and the documents that are attached. And here we have two document records which are parts of the scooter which were produced through the workflow and the conversion. Heading back into the purchase order, we can generate a message. This is a standard SAP output method where we'll take an existing one. We'll just go ahead and repeat it here. This is essentially sending an output to a particular partner or vendor, and in this case, bundle everything together. So right now, the SEAL application is pulling in the documents, the purchase order forms, resolving the material structure, and in a moment, it'll bring up a completed package. All right, so here comes the completed package. This is the SEAL output system in SAP. Essentially what we're looking at is a purchase order form, which we can have a look at, do a preview on. This will give us a PDF version of this showing what we're ordering, some of the scooter parts from this particular vendor, and where it's going to be delivered. So I'll head back into the job. This particular output will collect everything included GOS objects, so services for objects or business document services objects. It'll collect the document records, so we've identified these particular PDFs as printable from these document record sets. Those are the engineering drawings and some additional information that was collected here. So with the output job, we can also change the destination of the deliverable file. In our example, we will edit the job. Here on the actual output queue, we can change this to select a different device. In our case, we'll go ahead and select output view, which will deliver this PDF to our desktop. So we'll save this. And we also have the option here to reorder some of these. So if we wanted to move this object down, it'll change places with that. You can also go into adding documents either through a standard DMS search. You can also add documents through a product structure browser where we can pull in any number of components. Here we have a material. We can add a whole other material or object to this. We can add an engineering change number. We can do equipment. We can pull in quite a lot of information here to complete the purchase order package in case this information wasn't already attached to the purchase order to begin with. Upon output, we'll go ahead and select this. The documents here are shown as not released. This is a fail-safe, which can be configured so that users aren't able to print documents that have not gone through the completed workflow and are not vetted for external use or sharing with customers and suppliers. Now we'll go ahead and continue past this. In our case, we then submit this job. The job has been sent to the output system for processing, and the user can continue working in SAP without any further delay. So all of the information is collected. We can see here in the bottom it's working on it. This is a notification from the server. And shortly, we then receive a completed PDF, which can be shared through an email or can be saved to a network drive or saved through a OneDrive or a cloud sharing service. Here on the first page, we'll zoom out a little bit. We see the cover sheet. This is essentially generated information from SAP, completely configurable to decide if it's the vendor name, the ID of the vendor, the description, the address, etc. And as we scroll down here, we see a list of the documents that were included in this package. So going through this in its entirety, we can see that we have the purchase order form. This is the descriptor showing the SAP form. It also has some stamps on the side here, when this was produced, who produced it. Those are configurable as well. And then we have a terms and conditions document. Scrolling down, we see in this PDF we have a completed scooter schematic. This is something that we're ordering in this case, and we have some additional stamps and watermarks here. We can zoom in a little bit on this, bring it over, and you can see that this is the current state of the document record. This is user and date time information of when this was produced. And then this supports also 3D PDFs, so we can do taking a 3D drawing, embedding it into a PDF. So that, for example, this wheel here could be rotatable, so you have a little more interactivity for your recipient, which in this case would be a vendor, and could be a good idea if they're milling parts that you want to give them a better 3D representation of what you're looking for. Okay, in this example here, I will go through a similar scenario of delivering documents, but in this case, we're going to be going through a production order. That is transaction CO02. Here, I already have a production order prepared. And we see the similar example of the scooter. So now we assume that we've received the parts from our vendors, and to complete that scooter production order, in this case, we have a material attached right here. So we can go into it. This is the same scooter material, so we'll see very similar data in here. In this case, we have one document that's been released for use here. The other one has fallen off. Then can head back to production order. We also have in here the operations. We have the PRTs related to the operations, so we can have a look at those. In this case, you can see some check marks here. So these have production resource tools. This could be material component, could be a document record. What we'll do is we'll just click down here to have a look at it. And the PRT shows me that I have a document record that's attached. In SAP, most things are clickable, so you could go into certain objects, have a look at the documents, and navigate through it that way. So what we'll do from the production order screen is we will just simply print. Everything's been done, so the routing is in here. We have everything already set up by our production planner. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but we'll go and just select the output. So in this case, we do have copies. Once the production order is saved, this is doing this individually. We could also do this with mass production orders. All the information is collected as before. So we have the production order forms, we have time ticket, pick list, goods issues, etc. And we can have a look at this again. In this case, it's a simple preview. This is not what it would look like with the output, but we do see the production order forms in here with the barcode as well. So in this case, SAP represents the barcode as just a number and a simple graphic. In the SEAL output software, we will take that barcode and convert it into something legible by a scanner. Again, we have document records here, which have various items in them, office files, CAD files, and so forth. Here we can also rearrange these as before. So we can go into edit mode, and we can then drag and drop, moving files around to change the sort order of what this would look like when it's sent out to the production floor. We can also add objects again. So this is the same thing as before. I can go into DMS search, can go into the product structure browser, and we can add all kinds of documents to this. So once I'm satisfied with this, I will hit the output button. So in this case, we're going to be receiving this as a portal page. I've received this in an email as an example, where we have a link that there's been some files generated on a web portal. Accessing this link, we will see the server, and here this is hosted locally by the company that's generating this web portal. So we have again a cover sheet, so we can have a look at this. The cover sheet is very similar to the purchase order cover sheet, in which we have a descriptor information and a list of documents that are included in this package. And this is a thing that can be sent out to the production facility, to the plant, and can be scheduled and organized accordingly. So further in this web portal package, we have the documents. So as an example with the time ticket, click on this and we have a real barcode in here for the time ticket, showing some additional information such as stamps, page numbers, etc. on the side. And further in the package, we can see that we have a CAD drawings in here. So a lot of forms. Here we have, again, the scooter. So we've seen this one before, and the scooter has the release stamp, the current date and time of when this was produced, all live metadata from SAP. So these are the properties that arrived from the actual document records themselves, from the materials that were structured in SAP for this production plan. We see further in this, we have individual documents for other parts, all with their stamps. And then finally, at the end of this long list, we have an all-in-one. This is very similar to what we saw with the purchase order, where all the documents, including bookmarks, are issued here in this singular packet for use on the production floor.
So at this point, that's it for me, and I will turn it over to Sasha.
Thank you, David. So now that we learned how we can use the SEAL output management system from a standpoint of a purchase or production order, I would like to close the loop to a previous session where we showed you the workflow and the stamping solution. So how could we use SEAL solutions in the context of our product change use case? And what we implemented at some customers already in the past is the following. So we have our change process, our product change process, we have header information, we have object information, we have workflow information. Obviously, the workflow will trigger sending out this package to, for example, a supplier. But what we would do with this one is we would collect the header information, we would store the header information inside a PDF. We can also download attached files to the workflow. What we also can do is we can generate object information, and this could be CAD files or a variety of MS Office files. And then we can all bundle them up, triggered by a task in the workflow, and send them, for example, to a supplier. And to get this in a little bit different context here, I would like to show you what we can do with this here inside the system. So I'm back inside cenitCONNECT, and you see here in our example workflow from the previous web session, we stopped here inside the perform change area, and then we saw how we can stamp the information, etc. So with this workflow, we went a little bit further. We passed the modification phase, and we are right now in the pre-production phase. And you see here inside the pre-production phase, we extended already all the material masters, we created the manufacturing BOM, and the active task is right now to create the routing. And you see here, after creating the routing, we would like to send out a data package containing relevant information from this workflow, from this process, to our supplier. And how are we doing this? We have here a task to generate the supplier package. This is done by what we call an execute advisor, a background task. This background task will collect the information, and then in a subsequent task, we will send this package to a supplier. We have the email address here. We could also add them as a team member, and this will really perform sending out the information. So if I'm talking about information, what information would we send out? And the information we can send out are, for example, header information. And you see here we have basic data. This is something we could send out, but we could also send out attached files. So for example, the original change specification we attached to the workflow. Then we have the whole array of objects, and you see here we have BOM information, we have document information, and we have material information. David showed us already how we can navigate from a material master in the context of a purchase order or production order to documents. David showed us also or indicated how we can generate BOMs. So all this information we can collect via the plot output management from SEAL and download this into a directory to send it out to a supplier. So that's the second thing. So We have the header information, we have the attached files, we have object data. And then last but not least, we could create a summary out of our workflow, and this really contains the header information I mentioned already. So here you see a summary of the workflow, we see the different objects we have in the workflow, and that's something we could send out to the supplier as well. So how would we trigger the whole thing? We would trigger the whole thing by completing, in our scenario, this create routing task. So let me do this. I say I'm completed my routing. You just saw that we finished the create routing task, and let's go back to the workflow and see what happens there. Inside the workflow, we finished this task. In the background, the system completed the pre-production phase. We are right now in the production phase. That's something you see here. The system also generated the package, basically downloaded the information, bundled it together, and then in the next step, we sent this whole package to our supplier. So let's review the presentation again here. So what did just happen? We collected header information, we collected file information, we collected object information, and via a workflow trigger, we sent the whole thing to a supplier. That's just another use case, or that's just another example how we could use the plot output management system from SEAL in the context of cenitCONNECT APM, so in the context of a product change, engineering change, or any other workflow where you would like to send out a summary to somebody else in the world, and most likely the somebody else is not part of your company. Thank you very much, and with this one, I hand this session over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Sasha and David. I appreciate the demo completing our scenario for empowering downstream operations with live engineering data. We've seen now between the two sessions how information is created, changed, and moved both internally and externally. Let's take a moment to quickly reflect on why cenitCONNECT and the SEAL Digital Paper Factory are great additions to any SAP environment. From the cenitCONNECT side, a few clear points, of course, are the added automation opportunities, along with the bidirectional nature of the integrated workflows across the entire enterprise, not just engineering. cenitCONNECT also helps companies leverage their unique business processes while providing the best practice-based configurations that drastically reduce implementation time of traditional workflows, again, across the enterprise. The SEAL Digital Paper Factory takes that evolving data and automates viewable data generations and secure delivery, leveraging your investment in the enterprise backbone, SAP, so you don't have to worry about elements like authorization rights in a separate system. Of course, you're not alone. The scenarios we've shown across these two demos have been implemented and are running live at customers today. We're backed by industry-wide confidence from a variety of companies, including Boeing, Bobst, and Roche. Our customers have some great things to say about us too, and their experiences in working with both of our companies. In addition to the flexibility of the cenit solution, they are convinced by our practical knowledge and love our human component. We're delighted with the results. And my favorite quote, of course, is what once took 2 weeks now takes less than 1 hour. With that, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. I see we have a couple here already. David, it looks like this first one is for you. Can I trigger automatic outputs from other functions?
Yes, that's no problem. So the output engine works inside SAP to provide input from various business modules. So not only from production planning and purchasing like we saw today, but we could also pull from sales orders. We can pull from quality notifications, project networks, and so on.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David. I think this next one would be a good one for you as well. What kinds of files can be sent through automatically?
So normally when you're distributing a package, you want to consider the recipient. So PDFs are usually preferred. But with this type of solution, sending files digitally, you can even send native CAD files. We could send all kinds of 2D and 3D formats. So there's well over 40 or 50 formats out there that are floating around at any one time, and all of those would be supported through this package.
Okay, so great. It's pretty file type agnostic then.
Yep, it's dependent on the requirements. Yep.
Perfect. Sasha, I think this next one would be a really good one for you to answer. How fast are the packages typically generated?
Oh, the package are generated basically instantly. As you saw there, we have a task in the background. This basically collects the information and sends it out via email. So that's not a matter of hours or so. So that's basically the time the system needs to download this to the SEAL server, bundle it together, and send it out. So we are talking about really minutes before the email is out. Obviously, it depends on the size of the package, but it's almost instantly.
Okay, great. So anywhere from just a few seconds to a couple of minutes, depending on the size of the data then.
Yep, that's a good way to put it, yes.
Excellent. And just one more for you, Sasha. You showed clicking to create the package. Is that something that can be automated too?
Yes, actually, I have here inside the workflow, there was a task, which is a background task. And this is basically doing the automation. So if you have it in as part of a workflow, there's no really clicking to put a package together. This was only to show how it could work. But this is all happening in the background by the workflow automation here. So there's nobody who needs to really combine the package or really physically put it together. That's hidden between a background task, or how we call it, an execute advisor.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. I think we're actually running out of time here. So if we didn't get to your question during the session, we will definitely follow up with you directly after the webcast. Thanks again for joining us today. I hope that you've enjoyed the show. We thrive on bringing you informational sessions that matter. If you have a topic that you would like to see covered in the future, please email me, Jennifer, at j.moore@cenit.com. We look forward to seeing you at future events. Thanks and have a great day.